Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode. I'm here with Natalie Daniel. Natalie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's always funny to record an introduction like this because we've already been talking for a little while. But um, it's a beautiful sunny day here in North Carolina. We are recording on March 8th, and Natalie has just finished the Massanutten Trail, and I want Natalie to kind of tell you what she did and what was going on. But first, let's kind of hear about Natalie. If you don't know Natalie Daniel, she has some awesome accomplishments under her belt. She's a great ultra runner and has some really fun stories to share. So, Natalie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I guess do I go all the way back to when I started running?
Yeah, you can go all the way back if you like. I mean, tell me about, go ahead.
I started running because I wasn't outgoing enough for team sports. I tried out for all the team sports, and track was kind of like the sport that anybody could join. And it just so happened that I was pretty good at it. I could run the longer distances. And so that's what I did. I did like the 1800, the mile and all that. So I did track in junior high and high school. And
Where was that?
Here in Gaston County. I went to North Gaston High School in Dallas. I didn't run track in college. I just kept running for fun. And I didn't have any of the right shoes, the right clothes, any of that. I just would go out and run. Like when I was in college on my breaks, I would go and run around a local lake and just kept running for fun. Never competed in anything until around 2012. I ran my first 5K as an adult, like actual race. And I kind of like the competition. I placed in my age group because, road races, they have age group awards. And then it just kind of progressed from there. I skipped the 10K distance.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I did my first half marathon in 2014, and I had been kind of building up my distance. But I was supposed to run the Myrtle Beach Marathon with a friend, and she ended up not doing it. But I just went ahead and drove down there and did the Myrtle Beach Marathon. Half marathon. Then my first full marathon was that fall, the Savannah full, the rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I had a friend, he had done the Tunnel Hill 100. And I was like, man, I didn't even know that there was such a thing as 100 milers. And I was like, wow, that sounds interesting, but I knew I wasn't ready for that. I'm very cautious as a person. So I was like, I better get some other distances under my belt. So I did my first 50K in 2015, the Nashville Ultra 50K. And then the next year I went back out and did the 50 miler there in 2016. And then 2 weeks later, I did my first 12-hour on trail just to see, maybe I can get 50 miles on trail too.
And was that an event, the 12-hour, or did you just do something on your own?
Yeah, it was the Lake Hagler 12-hour here in Fort Mill, South Carolina.
Okay.
And I just really, really enjoyed the trails. I didn't actually run my first trail ever until 2014. I did a 9-mile race here at the Whitewater Center in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. And it was my first trail run ever, or officially. And I was like, oh, I'm up to 10 miles on the road. This will be no problem, but I literally thought I was going to die at the end.
Why do you think it took so long to get onto the trail?
I just didn't even know there was such a thing as trail running. I used to run in the woods, but I didn't know there was such a thing as trail running, if that makes sense.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, but once I started doing trails more, and like I'm not really fast on the road, but I am competitive. So when I won that 12-hour trail race, I was like, man, it was just nice to be able to actually compete, but I wasn't like running super fast. So after that, I pretty much just switched completely to trails. I think I did one more marathon because my friend talked me into doing the Nashville Rock and Roll
Sure.
Marathon.
Yeah.
And after that, I said, I'm not doing any more rock and roll marathons. It's just too peoply for me.
Two people.
Yeah. I don't like a lot of people. I mean,
Yeah.
I like people, but they're just so crowded.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
So the 12-hour you said was 2 weeks after the 50 mile that you did. Is that right? Yeah.
yeah.
And how far did you get in the 12-hour?
Just right at 50 miles.
Yeah, 50 miles again. So almost back to back 50 milers, and the legs were good. You're okay. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't surprise me with you, but
I don't know. I know when people ask me how I recover so fast, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, cheeseburger. I go to Dairy Queen every week and get my double cheeseburger with fries and a drink and a blizzard.
oh yeah, fueled by DQ. All right, I hear a sponsor coming on.
I wish they would because I go there every week. Uh, but no, I mean, I felt really good. I do race normally, not during COVID, but I normally race like once a month. Just because I like the competition, and it's not always like really long distance. I'll do a marathon, a 50K. I don't really like 25K half marathon distance, because I feel like you have to run faster.
That fast stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like you're running so fast. Like I like to eat snacks and stop at the aid stations and talk to people, and you really can't even do that in a shorter distance race. I mean, I guess you could, but not and be competitive.
Have you done the B series up in Virginia? Have you done that one?
No, I've only done grindstone.
Okay, gotcha. Something that might interest you, or no?
Maybe, but it's a big commitment.
Yeah,
And
it
plus,
is.
like my husband doesn't like driving really far.
That's fair. That's fair. And we'll talk about Russ in just a moment. And for those who don't know, the B series is 350Ks in the spring, and then in the fall it goes Grindstone 100, Mountain Masochist 50 miler, and then Hellgate 100K, which is like you said, it is a huge commitment. That is tough. So you've got the 12-hour done. Would you say that's maybe the longest kind of almost back to back effort you've done, or have you done?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Okay.
After that, I think like in 2018, I did the U.R.E 100 and Sky to Summit 50K 3 weeks apart, that but I had more ultras under my belt by then, so it wasn't as difficult.
Right. And so the progression, which makes sense. You said 2014 was 50K, and then 50 mile 2015. Am I right?
I did in 2016. I did my first 50 miler, and
Okay.
then
How did it progress from there?
2017. What was that?
I said, how did it progress from there? You were going. Go ahead.
Oh, so the next year, I did a 24-hour, and I was just my plan was to do 100 miles in 2017. At that, it was one epic run in Spartanburg.
Yeah.
And it was so cold. And I'll say, like, I hate the heat, but it seems like cold is my nemesis, because like my hands get cold and I'm just done. So I got to, I think, 68 miles at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was cruising the first 50 miles, but I got to where I wasn't moving very quickly, and I got so cold, and I was like, that's it. I'm done. I went, and got in Russ's truck and just drove home. I didn't even say bye to anybody. I just got my stuff and left because I was just, so done. Um, so I guess that would be my first 100K. And then I registered for Blind Pig 100 that was at the same park in Spartanburg. And that was my first 100.
Okay.
And I'm the type of person I don't want to set myself up for failure. So I picked one that I thought if, as long as I was trained, I could finish unless I got injured or something. And that went really well. The Blind Pig, I ended up winning first female, second overall, and finished in like 21:07.
Excellent.
So, and from there, I mean, I was like, well, if I finish, I'd run out at UWARI, and I said, well, if I finish Blind Pig and I feel good, then I'll go ahead and register for UWARI. Cause I had volunteered in 2017 and, I was really excited about that race was awesome. I mean, the aid, the course isn't my favorite.
You're talking about?
The UWARI 100,
Yeah.
that was my second 100.
Gotcha. It's like a 20-mile loop, right?
Yes. And it's not the most elevation of any race, but it's just all technical trail.
Yeah. Yep.
So
I remember I did the 100K and I was good after 3 laps.
yeah, I think you did the 100K. If I'm not mistaken, did you do it in 2018?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was 2018.
I think you won, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the same year I did the 100.
Okay.
But you finished your 100K way before I did, I'm sure.
Well, it was a nice day. At least we had a nice day out there. And like you said, aid stations were great. I mean, anybody looking for a good 100K or 100 miler, that's really well set up and put on. I really like that event. It's like you said, very undulating, lots of up and down. Some technical sections. And if you like lap courses, it's not bad for 5 laps. So, but that's awesome. So you got two 200s down.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if. And I also did the Black Mountain Monster, the 24-hour that same year in June. And I ended up getting 100 miles there. So I guess that kind of counts as 100 miles since I got it.
Yeah.
And then after that, and then I was thinking, well, if I do the UWARI 100 and I finish that, I had volunteered at Hellbender was it 2018? And I said, well, if I finish UWARI and I do okay, then I'll go ahead and register for Hellbender. And that, I think that went, in my opinion, that went pretty well. I didn't have the only part, I guess, in Hellbender that was hard was there were 2 parts: going up the Buncombe Horse Trail, and you know how wet it can get.
Yes.
I kept losing my shoes in the mud, and then lead mine at mile 65.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Everybody keeps asking us to take that section out, which, we've got the new trail that goes right from the camp now. So we will start and finish at the camp. We potentially, with lead mine, it's going to be about 102 miles. I think it was mapped out to be, with lead mine still in there. But it's amazing how many trails they're building in there right now. There's about 20 plus miles of new trails going in that area. So we've got potential for some new options, which is exciting. And not having to run on the road to start or, and coming back to the same point to finish, which is going to be awesome. So I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited for next year. But yeah, I thought you had a great race at Hellbender.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I lost all concept of time. So when I finished and I saw that I was under my time goal, like if I'd had tears, I would have been crying because I was like, what? I thought I was like 34 hours or something. And then I looked at the clock and Josh, well, I think I told you I had a freak out, at that one trail crossing because there were no markers. And I wasted some time there and I went the wrong way. And Josh, Folan, he was my pacer. He had to run ahead, go find a marker for me and then come back and get me. He's like basically he did everything but grab me by my collar and smack me in the face to tell me just to shut up and come on.
That's fantastic. Oh, man, that's great. So that would be four 100s. You have more under your belt, or?
Yeah. So I did later in 2019. I did grindstone.
Mm-hmm.
Which that was a struggle just because the night start, I like my sleep and I got really sleepy. And then I did, this past fall, I did No Business 100.
Oh, cool. I hear really good things about that one. What did you think?
Oh, I mean, I liked it so much, I'm going back and I'm doing it in the other direction.
Right. Because they alternate each year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you do it in both directions, you'll basically have 3 buckles. But I'm excited to try in this other direction because all the creek crossings will be closer to the beginning, and then I won't have to run with wet feet for so long. I can change shoes and, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it might be a little bit faster this year than last year.
Yeah. And you've got quite a diversity of events between timed events and some flatter and some more mountainous. What do you like the best? What do you think is your best suit?
I don't know. I honestly, I really like all of it. I like the hard climbing. But I also, now I don't like stuff that's too flat. I like, and it's funny because like I know a lot of road runners and they'll be like, oh, that was so hilly. And I'm like, where was the hill? So I like to have, I mean, I would say I like races that have at least about 100 feet of gain per mile. Just to, kind of, cause you get a break when you're able to walk some. I don't do well, like the Yeti 100. That race terrifies me because I would probably just blow up my legs, not knowing when to walk.
Yeah. I hear you.
So like even Black Mountain Monster, it's not super hilly, but you can walk some
Right.
and give your legs a break.
Yeah. What would you say if you were gonna recommend some ultras to folks? What would be a few that you say, and it doesn't matter what distance, you can, recommend a 50K, you can recommend a timed event, 100 miler. What were some that you think were your all-time favorites?
Let's see, a 50K. I really enjoyed, I did the Fontaflora 50K. I really enjoyed that, especially if you like the just rolling, their mountain bike trails. That was enjoyable. I really enjoyed the Solly Frosty Foot.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my favorites. Local to me, there's one in Kings Mountain State Park, but they don't have it anymore. There's a new one coming out, the Mountaineer Rumble. He just had the first year was this past year. Gosh, there's so many races. Like, Iron Mountain is one of my favorite races. I've done the 30, the 50, and the 40 miler. And there's not a lot of scenery, but again, the aid is awesome. The post race, it's like a family cookout.
Nice.
You get baked goods for your awards. It's like if you register early, it's $25. So you can't beat that.
No, not at all. That's for sure. And you mentioned aid being great at quite a few of these races. in your opinion, what does a good aid station, what do they have? Like, what are the things that you're like, wow, this is great options, like that, and this is for personal benefit. So when I, get the Hellbender, I can say, oh, we should include this.
Oh, well, no, I'll say too, oh, Hellbender, but I don't want to recommend that to somebody for their first. That was now by far, that was like one of my favorite races. The aid, and I'll say the aid stations. So the energy, that makes a really good aid station. If you get there and there's good music, I know that sounds stupid, but if you get into an aid station, they're all just standing around and
Right.
like no energy, I don't know, it's just not as good. But so the energy, and then food wise, I remember one of my favorite things at Hellbender, you guys had at Curtis Creek at mile 80, there was somebody had strawberry avocado smoothies.
Yes.
And I thought that would be nasty, but it was so good. you know,
they get creative. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was good. And then I'm just, let's see, I like ginger ale, because I tend to get kind of nauseous. So I do like ginger ale, and I can't do a lot of bread or anything like that. So if an aid station has burgers and I can get a burger with no bun, or even like at Grindstone, they just put some egg and bacon in my hand and I ate it like that. So I ate a lot of real food.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then another good thing I've had is like if they, aid stations, if they have the banana and they'll just spread some peanut butter on them for me.
Yep.
That's good.
That's a good one too. Nice. Cool.
And then broth. I love hot broth. I can't do the noodles, but I do. Yeah. I'll just be like, just give me a cup. Just give me some broth.
I actually like the if they have avocados, boiled potatoes, and bacon.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's kind of my favorite. I don't know if I've ever told the story here. I was doing one out in Wyoming, Bighorn. I was at a Bighorn, and it's an out and back, right? So you pass the aid station obviously twice. And first time out, they had bacon, and I mean, it was great. I was so happy. They had potatoes, kind of like home fries. So it was like home fries and bacon, and it was glorious. And so now I'm coming back, and I've had just a time, and I couldn't wait to hit this aid station. And I was like, oh, can I have some more bacon? They're like, we're out. Oh my gosh, that was soul crushing. Like my spirits were already low, and when they said they didn't have any more bacon, I sunk to an all-time low. But it happens. It happens in races. So
yes. How do you run out of bacon?
I know, right? I was like, but it was a pretty remote station. So, and to their they had a 50 miler come through before us. Like, so the 50 miler started in the morning and and had gone through. So they probably picked that aid station pretty well before the 100 miler started getting back there. So, but let's talk about Russ for a second. Your husband, Russ, he's also a runner. And Russ has some great experiences as well. So you guys, you both kind of share in these adventures, helping each other out. What kind of stuff does Russ do?
Well, first of all, his training plan, and this is his exact words. He said he wakes up and his training plan is, am I running or not? So, I get on to him too, because he did the Solly Frosty Foot, the 50K, and he's done Fonta Flora 50K. Those are his two 50Ks he's done, but he doesn't like to train. So like right now he's registered for the Black Mountain Monster. He was registered for the 6 hour, but he said he wanted to do 40 miles. And I was like, if you want to do 40 miles, you're not going to do it in the 6 hour. I'm just telling you. So I was like, you might want to email Mike and see if you can do the 12 hour. So that's his goal, to do 40 miles. But and he's going to kill me when he hears this, but he just won't train. And I'm like, you got to train. You got to get out and do some longer runs,
It's
So
highly recommended, Russ. So when you hear this, we're calling you out, buddy.
I know he knows it. Like he'll say, "Yeah, you're right. I need to get serious." But then, I'll say, like I've even given him plans. Now, when he trained for, I think it was the Fontaflora, he actually did train. He did all the long runs. He was really trained for that. But like he wanted to do a half marathon. He's doing Myrtle Beach half marathon. I gave him a plan because he wants to run it under 2 hours. And so I gave him a plan, and then he didn't even look at it. So I was like, you know what? It's hard to like help your spouse out because you know how it is. Like you don't want to listen to your spouse. And we've been married so long that like half the time he just blocks me out anyway.
Funny. That's great. Oh man. And you mentioned, Russ, in your adventures for Massanutten and your others, you had mentioned in your blog, which we'll talk about at the end. You can tell everybody about your blog and where they can find this information because you have some really good stuff in there. But you mentioned the B.R.U.T.E challenge. Do you want to talk about the B.R.U.T challenge and what that is?
Yeah, so I actually didn't hear about it until a few months ago, but the B.R.U.T challenge basically is 5 runs. It's the Foothills Trail, Pitchell, Scar, Massanutten, and the Georgia Loop. And they all have to be done within 1 year of, like from the time that you do the first run, you have to finish them all in a year. So I didn't hear about it until like I did the Foothills Trail back in May of last year. And had I heard about the B.R.U.T challenge, I probably would have started these other runs sooner. But it just sounded really interesting because I had already been I had been invited to do Scar a couple times, and Pitchell's been on my radar for quite a while. And then like the Georgia Loop, I wasn't really familiar with that, but I ran GDR back in November, and I was like, well, I've already done several miles of the Georgia Loop, so I'm familiar with the terrain. So that was, I wouldn't say easy because that was actually not easy at all. And then Massanutten, I've heard about the 100, but I didn't know about the loop. And that too, I didn't realize how technical Massanutten was because like my GPX file also I didn't expect that there to be that much gain because the GPX file that is on the FKT site says there's only 10,000 feet of gain, and that is very far off. It was like 15,000.
Ooh, that is quite far off.
Yes, and it was like I had 8,000 at the before the halfway point.
Oh my gosh!
And I was like, "Oh God, but there's got to be some downhill here somewhere."
Oh, that's great. Well, and going back, you said you did Foothills last May. I actually did an episode with Sam Reed. He just like you did the Unsupported record. And all of this stuff I'll kind of put in the show notes as well, like the B.R.U.T challenge website, your blog, and then previous episodes that kind of refer back to some of these things. But you also went for the Unsupported record as well, correct?
Yes, because I'm not, like I said before, I'm not really fast, but I don't mind being out in the woods by myself for a really long time. So I was, and nobody had, no female had done it Unsupported. So I was like, hey, there's no records, so it doesn't matter how long it takes me. But I did have a goal in mind. I was hoping to go I think it was under 21 hours, which didn't happen. But I mean, I'm still happy with my time.
Yeah. Did you feel like you left some time out there? Like maybe at some point, if you went back, you think you could go back and hit either 21 or sub 21?
Not sub 21, but I could definitely do it faster. I think I could take off at least an hour or two because so I was registered for GDR back last March. And when I found out that it wasn't going to happen, I stopped training, and I stopped doing strength training. I wasn't doing as much hill climbing. So I went in the oh, and then also they closed the parks. So I had planned on doing the Foothills Trail the same day as GDR, like when it was supposed to happen. And I ended up having to put it off for a whole month. And then I don't know. I just like, I just didn't like do anything difficult in that month because, like, it's like I had already tapered for GDR, and then it was like I was still trying to taper. But, yeah, so, and I wasn't used to carrying that much stuff. So like my back got really sore.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I had this issue I've never had in my life where my foot was cramping for a really long time. And I was really nauseous like pretty much the whole time I was nauseous. And every time I tried to eat something, I would start gagging. So, and then I remember at one point, like I just laid down on the trail and was like praying, like, just tell me what I need to do. I can't run for, I think at that point I was at mile 30. I'm like, I can't run for 45 more miles like this,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I could have done that faster.
Well, you still got the unsupported record. Cool. That's very cool. Can we talk about your training for just a moment while we kind of touched on it just there, but what does your typical week look like? What kind of, do you do time on feet? Do you do miles? Like, what kind of stuff do you do?
So yeah, I do miles.
Okay.
And the reason I don't do well with time because if I do a 4-hour run, but it's on a really hard trail, I might not get hardly any miles. So I just stick with miles. I use if I'm training for a 100-miler, I use a plan. I use the Hal Kerner plan.
Okay.
It seems to work fairly well for me as far as like just staying trained. I know I could probably add in some speed work or something and be faster, but I try to train for the terrain that I'm going to be running. So in the surface. So if my race is going to have 200 feet of gain per mile, I try to do runs that are about that. And I do try to go out in run in Western North Carolina, as much as I can.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, how do you do that? Being in Gaston County, I would imagine you'd have to travel a little bit. I mean, what's URI from you? How far are you from URI?
Well, that's about an hour away, but the gain just isn't that good. Now, Crowder's Mountain, I can get better gain at.
Okay.
I just get bored there. So I do enjoy, like, I've been out to Dalton, which is in the other direction. I've done Hanging Rock, Pilot Mountain. I really enjoy, like, for a 15-mile loop, I enjoy the Seven Sisters course out in Montreat.
Yeah.
Anywhere on the Hellbender course is great training.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then, and also, like, because I knew I was going to be attempting Pitchell, I went out and did like out and backs on the MST out there.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah. And so you don't really, I mean, for your 100-milers, Hal Corner's plan, I'm not as familiar with Hal's plan, but it doesn't incorporate as much like workouts, like speed training and such like that. It's more just mileage based.
It's mileage, and then like there's a few 15-mile runs that you add tempo in.
Okay.
At the beginning, there's fartleks, hill
Yeah.
repeats.
Okay.
There's some workouts, but I've been trying to loosely do like my own strides and stuff like that in my runs because I'm not a coach. But I know that I could get a little bit faster because that's the only complaint I have with myself is that I pretty much do all my runs at the same speed unless if I'm racing. So that's why I like to race because it makes me go faster.
Yeah, I get it. Sure. And then you had mentioned strength training. What does strength training look like for you?
Well, for me, it's like it's mostly body weight. I do body weight stuff. like squats, lunges. I do use a band, some stuff. I also do some agility stuff. So I have a little step, and it looks dumb, but I like, jump up, step down, step over, step back. Like I do a lot of
No, that's
agility.
great. Yeah.
And then, yeah, and I try to do like 10 minutes of yoga every day.
Okay.
So
Mobility is great. Yeah.
yeah, because I didn't realize it until a couple of years ago when I got like, how you have the little massage, the people massaging you after a race.
Yes.
And he did something to me. He's like, "Oh my gosh, your hip is so tight," and I was like, "Wow, I didn't even realize it was that tight." So I've been trying to do stuff to, just help with my flexibility, and I think that's helped a lot.
Good. Good. Right on. Do you, in your blog, which we'll kind of talk about like Massanutten and such, but it says, you talked about your poles. Do you practice with your poles a lot as well?
Not as much as I should. I'm getting better.
Good. Good. Yeah. Just curious. All right. Well, all right. So you hit Foothills in May, and then you said you did GDR in November, but then you went after the Georgia Loop. Was it December? Is that right?
Yep, it was December. I think it was right after Christmas, like right before New Year, in between Christmas and New Year's.
Right on. And was there a attempt there?
Was there an
FKT
attempt?
attempt?
Yeah, it was for the unsupported, because again, there was no unsupported record. So I was like, well, however, I mean, I always have time goals, but I think my time goal there was like 15 hours, but for some reason I always get a cold at my birthday. My birthday is on December 18th, and not trying to get any presents or anything, but I always get a cold, and I got a cold, and I guess I just wasn't recovered. So when I went out there, like, I just didn't have the energy. Like all the climbs were harder than they were in GDR, if that makes sense. Like it was the same climbs, about the same distance in, and I was just having to stop halfway into the climb and just, how you stop and you just like I would have to stretch my back and holding onto my poles, and so I ended up, that took me like right at 16 hours.
Okay. Georgia Loop is it's roughly how many miles? I think
the thing said, the GPX file says, or the website says 57.
Okay.
So, we'll say give or take, because trail miles, GPS watches are never accurate.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and I think it's so deceptive. I mean, GDR has obviously kind of shed light on how hard that that northern Georgia mountains are. It's like, so that Georgia Loop is for real. Well, how much gain did you have on that?
I think it was like 14,000.
14,000 feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Impressive.
I know. Well, and like, so you've done GDR, that Coosa, the climbs on Coosa, and then the Duncan Ridge Trail. Those are pretty brutal. And then, what is it? The Benton Mackay?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty brutal. I will say it's funny because the Appalachian part was probably the most runnable and the most well maintained. Like they did everything but blow the trail off. I mean, they really maintained that trail.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think, Duncan Ridge and Benton, they kind of, they don't have the attention obviously that the AT does, since the AT is so well trafficked, but yeah, that's a amazing loop, that Georgia Loop. It's absolutely brutal up there, but it's funny that you say that, the AT was probably easier than the other sections, because so that's two. We've got two down, and then you went to attempt Massanutten, which like I said, people probably know of the 100 miler, but Talk about just Massanutten in general. Let's give a little bit more background on Massanutten. Where is it in Virginia? And, talk about like the distance and the gain and all that kind of stuff.
Well, where I started is Fort Valley, Virginia. And what is that? Is it the George Washington National Forest? I should know that, shouldn't I?
It's okay.
I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
But so it's like in Woodstock, Strasburg, kind of that area. It's in the Shenandoah Valley. And I believe that's the Shenandoah River that kind of runs in the middle, or it runs like around the ring, the Massanutten Trail, on the outside, if that makes sense. So it's like that ring is within the river.
Gotcha.
So if you look at the picture, it looks really cool. Like if you look at an aerial view of the ring, and you can see the river, it's just kind of snaking along on either side of it, on the outside. And then what was the rest of the question?
It's okay. How long was the loop?
It's 70.4 miles.
Okay. 70.4 miles, which it's like right in between the Foothills and Georgia Loop for distance, right? Foothills is a little bit longer.
Yes.
Yeah. So Foothills is what, 74-ish? Is that right?
It's supposed to be 76, but I don't remember what my watch said. I know I was surprised when I saw the end. I was thinking I had more miles to go.
Gotcha. So 76, Georgia Loop 57, and then Massanutten around 70-ish. And how much vertical gain did you end up getting for Massanutten?
About 15,000 feet.
Another 15,000. Gosh, and how was you kind of talked about how surprised you were by the trail itself. How technical was it?
Well, most of it was really technical. I mean, it's just rocks and it wasn't even just the rocks, but like I wish I would have finished the first time I went out there, which I guess we can talk about.
Yeah,
The first time I went out there, like the trail, the weather conditions were great. I was moving really well. I felt really good. I mean, there had not been a lot of rain, so the trails were really dry. And there was only one section the first time I went out there that was really wet. And it's funny because like the way the trail is, you'll go up on the ridge and then you'll run on the ridge and then you'll kind of go down, where there's this one section around 25 miles where this is after you pass Kennedy Peak. And that's the only place where I saw anybody on both trips, was like right at Kennedy Peak. You go up that and then you kind of make a right around mile 21, and then you'll go down some. There'll be like a little switchback section, and then it goes a little up, but it's a kind of a wide double track, and that's where I saw people. And then you come out onto this road, this parking area at like 23 miles, and then from where I parked, and then anyway, and then you'll kind of drop back down. Well, I guess since it's a low section and it's right next to a creek, that whole section for about 5 miles was really wet both times. And there was still a little bit of residual snow and ice, but it was just really wet. And but then after that, like you start climbing again, and you're slowly climbing the whole time. And if you look at the elevation profile, it looks like a really aggressive climb, but it's not. It's just steep enough and just wet enough to where I couldn't get enough traction to really run that section. I would kind of run a little bit and then walk and then run. But around mile 32 is a horrible climb. It's like 800 feet and a half a mile.
Ooh.
Yeah. But I knew it was coming the second time, so I just braced myself. But the first time, like that just kicked me in the teeth.
Did you know that was coming?
Yeah, I was like, what in the world is this crap? But then like after that, it was kind of you're running up on the ridge, and like the first time I went out there, because the trails were really clear, um it was very runnable. And then I got to the first time I went out there, I got to mile about 36 and a half, and it had already gotten dark on me. And I had my waist lamp on, but I hate wearing a headlamp. So I was like, oh, I'll just stop at like mile 40 when I stop to get a snack, and I'll put my headlamp on. Well, my night vision is terrible, and that was a mistake because I got to this, I had been power hiking, and there was a section where I thought I could run a little bit. I took like 2 running steps, clipped a rock with my toe, and then came down on my knees, hit my head, and and then I didn't even realize my head was bleeding because my knee hurt so bad. And you know how you're like on the ground, you're like, oh, like holding your knee.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was
Oh,
doing that, and then I was like seeing blood dripping. So I was like, where's this blood coming from? So I pulled my phone out and got the camera, and I had on my favorite Millstone 50K beanie, and I could see red coming through the white. And I'm like, oh crap.
oh.
So I called my husband because miraculously I had phone service. I called him and I was like, hey, I think I'm in trouble. I don't do well with blood. That's one thing. I don't do well with blood. So I just freak out when I see blood. And I called him, and then like blood was just gushing everywhere. Like I still have blood on some stuff that just
Oh, man.
couldn't wash out. But I was on the phone with him for like 20 minutes, and I finally got the bleeding. Like I finally got a Band-Aid to actually stay on my head. And he's like, I think you should call 911. And I had my Garmin InReach, but I'll say this: if you have a GPS tracker or a device like that, you should know how to use it, because I couldn't figure out how to press the SOS button.
Oh,
And so I didn't realize you have to like pull this little tab open, pull the little thing open, and then press it. But so I called 911 and I told her about my tracker. Well, the 911 operator, she was like, she didn't know I guess she didn't know what I was talking about, because she said, "Oh, I don't think that'll be helpful."
oh, geez.
And
I saw
the
that in blog.
I know, and the sheriff, he was like, "Oh," he said, "I'm gonna have to have a talk with my dispatchers, because we would have been able to find you immediately."
Oh,
So, but she was like, well, just stay there, because, they have ATVs and stuff, and they'll come get you. So I was sitting there waiting and waiting, and I had my little Mylar blanket over me because I had on capris, and I was starting to get really cold. At that point, I had put back on my layers that I took off early in the day. And, oh, and my phone died too. So, like, as soon as I got off the phone with 911, my phone died. So,
oh,
now I have a charger, like a really good charger that I can bring. Um, but I sat there for like 4.5 hours,
oh my God.
and freezing on this ridge, this exposed ridge, with the wind just like whipping on me. And I had to use the bathroom so bad. Finally, I was kept praying. I'm like, Lord, please just tell me what to do. I don't want to die of hypothermia out here. I don't even know if anybody's coming. So finally, I said, you know what? I'm just going to get up, because I could die just sitting here, and I have to pee really bad. And I don't feel comfortable pulling down my pants with me being so cold. um, so I finally started moving again. And by the way, those Mylar blankets are not good. I since have bought an emergency, like a bivy sack.
Gotcha.
And that was a lot better, or I think that's a lot better. But anyway, so I started moving. I got like a mile down the trail, and I finally saw the helicopter, and I was like, oh my God. So I turned on I like used the flashing thing on my waist lamp,
Yeah.
and I started like pointing it at the helicopter, and then they started doing circles. So I'm like going around in a circle, pointing my waist lamp at the helicopter. And then finally they were like, Natalie, is that you? Anyway, long story short, then, so they spotted me, they radioed to their people, and there just happened, I was at a trail intersection there, and I saw the rescue people coming up the other trail, and we were able to walk. I was able to walk down, and get to help. Like they took me to the emergency vehicle, and then went to the hospital and everything. So, but it was kind of scary for a while there because, like I said, I didn't know if they were coming to get me. I didn't know.
Yeah. Few things that you said there. So, obviously you could have a Garmin inReach, but you have to know how to use it. Thank God you had self-service, but, lesson learned, you need a backup battery, just in case. Now, was there anybody, like, was Russ on standby on this first attempt, or were you?
No, I drove, and he fussed at me really bad after this, and that's why he went with me this second time. But I drove up there by myself, 5 hours, was out there by myself, and then after I left the hospital, I had to drive back. So yeah, and that's another thing. Like he said that I need to have somebody on standby if I do these attempts from now on, just in case something like this happens.
Right. Oh, it's a hard lesson to learn, but it's a valuable lesson to share with others. Man, so we didn't get to finish that, and that was only a few weeks after Georgia Loop, right? Because you did that in January, but then you decided. Your blog says almost immediately that you were going to go back, right?
Oh yeah, I was like, yeah. I said as soon as I was waiting on the weather to be good, and then of course my head had to heal because they glued me in the hospital. And then I don't know what happened, but the glue, it didn't heal. Like, a couple weeks later, the scab came off and it was wide open. So I had to like re-glue it myself.
Oh, jeez.
And then, so I re-glued it and put a butterfly stitch on, and it healed perfectly as perfect as it could heal this time.
Yeah. I can see a little red line, but
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, my friends say I'm like Harry Potter now. So, but anyway, yeah. I mean, but my legs felt fine because technically I only got like a little over 50K in, and so.
Yeah. Aside from your knees were okay.
Well, and that was the other thing. My knee was bothering me, and I actually hit it and hurt it again. I wasn't running when I hit it the second time, but it was like my kneecap was bothering me. But like a week or two before I could tell it was slowly getting better. And then when I went to do it, it was like pretty much 100% better.
Right. So you had to take off a little time to, for the knee, especially. I mean, I know you had to let the head heal too, but you took a little bit of time off just to make sure everything was okay.
Yeah, I had to take it a little easy. I don't take, if you look at my Strava, I don't take time off, but I do like take it easy, and I just try to, if my knee's bothering me, I won't do like aggressive downhills and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So leading into Massanutten, for the first time, did you have any idea of the trail? Like, what kind of recon did you do? Had you run any portion of that, or were you just kind of doing some online research?
I did no recon. The only thing, my friend who's done Massanutten several times, you might know him, Mike Mason.
Oh yeah, sure.
He was like, it is rocky. And I'm like, oh, it can't be that bad. I mean, the elevation doesn't look that bad. And then Nathan at the Ultra Running Company, he said, oh, well, he said, you did the Foothills Trail in 23 hours. You should be able to do Massanutten in 21. Which I think I could do it in 21 hours, given better circumstances. But technically it was way harder. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
so rocky.
Right. Yeah. I guess foothills would be the stairs, and the bridges would be the difficult thing, and Massanutten would be the rocks. Um,
Yes.
they had their challenges, but yeah. So I'm sure you had some choice words for Nathan when you got to that half-mile stretch with 800 feet of gain.
No, I did. I texted him. I was like, I don't remember what I said. I just told that 800 foot climb in half a mile can kiss my butt. But
So
nah, you know, the only thing I said, like when I got back, and he was like, I did the whole 122 hours. I was like, man, I was like, I'm gonna smack you.
that's funny.
I was like, well, you're faster than me, so that's expected.
Yeah, yeah. We had Nathan on with an episode with one of the runners that I coached. Was she did Rim to River, the one in West Virginia, 100 miler, and Nathan was crew chief there. So Nathan had some really good words of wisdom for 100 miler. So he's a good resource, especially to ask questions of. But yeah, just knowing it's rocky, it probably wasn't the most help for you. But so do you like kind of just going into like kind of I wouldn't say going in blind, but just kind of experiencing the trail as it comes, or do you like to have kind of a little bit more heads up? Because I know you've got Pitchell on the schedule, and obviously you've seen parts of Pitchell, so at least you have some idea of that. But
Yeah, I prefer to do some recon. This one was so far away. It just wasn't feasible for me to go out there beforehand.
yeah,
Um, all the other ones, like even Georgia Loop, would have been pretty far. Had I not done GDR, I don't know that I would have gone out and done any recon there either.
gotcha.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Well, Scar's still a good little ways for you too.
and I've got a friend who says he's going to run the last 30 miles with me.
Okay.
Um, I just told him, I said, now, because he's only run short distance. I was like, now, you're just keep in mind, you're not going to have fun run, Natalie with you. You're going to have 40 miles in. This is BS, Natalie. I mean, I've been told I'm pretty easy to pace. I mean, I run when I can run, and then I walk when I can't run. Um, I mean, even at the end of Massanutten, I was still running when it was runnable. It's just, getting back to the Massanutten, there had been a horrible ice storm the week before, I think,
For the second attempt?
for the second attempt, and the trail was just a disaster. Like there were trees and limbs and debris, like all those sticks that you catch on your shoes and you drag them.
Yeah.
Like briars. My legs look horrible.
You've got a
Because,
picture of that on your blog.
yeah,
Looked like you had that rat jaw.
yeah, and it just made it hard to run. And then all the water, like I swear, half that trail. Well, I take that back. The first 20 miles, I don't remember running through any water. There was some snow and ice that I had to maneuver around and through. But after that, there was a lot of water. And like, I remember a couple sections where I couldn't even tell like this one time I thought it was a creek crossing, but that was the trail. I'm like, where am I supposed to cross? Where's the trail across the creek? And then I pull up my phone app, and that was the trail. So I'm like running down a creek, but I don't know if it's supposed to be a creek or if it's just water runoff or what. But like I get to a gravel road and think, oh yay, I can make up time here, but it was just completely flooded. And I have a hard time running through water when it's rocky.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Anybody does for sure.
So because like the first half, I mean, I was cruising. I was ahead of my time goal, and I knew that the second half was not going to be as hilly as the first half. But I lost a lot of time just with the trail conditions in that
Gotcha.
second half.
Something you had mentioned earlier is that, you feel comfortable being, out on the trail. But, in your blog, you had talked about how you got to one of those crossings and there was a truck or something with its headlights on. Do you remember that?
Yes. So I come off the trail, and you have to make a right and run down this gravel road. And around the curve, I could see a truck up ahead on the road, or a vehicle. I don't know what kind of vehicle it was, but I saw it. And then you have to make a right. Well, I thought it was on this gravel road, but the trail was actually right next to the gravel road. So I go up the gravel road, and then I turn around because I knew I was going the wrong way. And all of a sudden that vehicle was at the bottom of the gravel road. And I'm like, I was freaking out because they're just sitting there with their headlights on. And I knew they had to have seen me I have two
Like,
lights. I have a
yeah,
waist light and a headlight.
right,
So I didn't know what to do. And like, I just hurried up, got on the trail, went the right way, started power hiking up, and prayed that, they couldn't hike as fast as me if they were
right,
killers or
right.
something.
Yeah.
I mean, I even
Do you,
contemplated just like turning my lights off and hiding for a minute, but then I was like, they were still sitting there with their car lights on. So that was kind of scary a little
yeah.
bit.
If a situation arises like that in the future, do you think you have a better plan? Because I mean, it's that's a reality that is a concern for all of us. Like I mean, I know when I'm out at night and all of a sudden I may be running and it's 3 a.m. and all of a sudden there's like a truck that's coming up and it freaks you out. It's nighttime. They're probably thinking, why on earth is this person out here? And you're thinking the same. We probably could equally be scared of each other. Like, why on earth are these people out here? But the reality is you have to be safe in some kind of regard. Did you think upon that, or did you reflect and say, if that were to happen in the future, I should probably do this?
I don't, honestly, I don't know what else. I don't know what I would have done. I mean, I do have this little stun gun that I never carry. I guess I could have that, but I mean, you have to be so close to somebody to use that. Um, I mean, I had my poles. The only thing I could have thought to do would be to turn my lights off.
Lights off. Yeah.
Just
I
wait.
mean, yeah, that's a good start. I mean, if somebody pursued you, I mean, we've been harassed in the middle of the night by people on on multiple occasions, but thankfully nothing ever transpired. Usually if you just let them holler at you and say whatever they're going to say, it just it ends at that.
Yeah.
But I mean, like thankfully I've never had anybody like chase after me or, do anything to that regard, but it's always in your mind, just like you were saying, you become aware of it. And because it's dark and you're in this situation and alone, I mean, it's, something to think about for people to, for their own safety. I mean, things can happen, but hopefully they don't, but it's a good contingency plan to have. But I'm certainly glad nothing ever came to be from that experience. But so your second one's you're moving through this really well. What kind of stuff? You said you like to eat real food, and when you're out there on these self-supported adventures, what kind of stuff do you do for fueling?
So I recently started using the Spring Energy.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
the only gel, and there's only one that I've actually tried, and I've tried two, but there's only one that I like.
Which one's
Um,
that?
the Speed Nut with hemp oil.
Okay, like slow burn one. Okay.
Yeah, it's really high in calories,
Yes.
and fat, which I
250.
do a lot of fat or good fats.
Yeah. What was the
And
other one that you tried?
God, what's it called? It's the one with the oatmeal. It's like a bigger.
Oh, the Wolf Pack.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's
Tastes
kind of more of a meal replacement one, which I mean is great for your situations.
yeah.
That's like 350 calories, I think.
Yeah.
The the other two that I might suggest, one is Canterbury. That's one of my favorites. It's like 100-calorie one, but it's kind of like a strawberry based or berry based one.
Yeah.
And then their new one called Awesome Sauce, which is applesauce.
Yes.
That's 180 calories, I believe. So I mean, for basically a gel that's pretty good for calories, 180 calories, especially when you're needing those calories. But so Spring Energy, and then what else were you doing?
I make my own like mixture with sweet potatoes. It's sweet potatoes, chia seeds, Himalayan salt, coconut, just a lot of good fats and carbs.
How do you
And
store that?
I put it in like little baby food pouches.
Oh, the reusable pouches. Cool.
Yep, yep.
Sweet.
So I carry that, and I also I like the peach fruit cups. I found that I like the little mini Slim Jims. And then also I have carried like the granola bars, like the little crunchy granola bars, and the peanut butter crackers. And I also carry Yon Bonds, but those are like a last resort.
I'm not familiar with Yan Bonds. What are Yan Bonds?
Like these little chia balls.
Okay.
I think they're sold more locally,
Okay.
but
Gotcha.
and those are all right, but they're kind of hard to chew. They get hard and they're hard to chew.
Gotcha.
So, and then I also use Tailwind, but I don't drink enough for the Tailwind to like give me all my calories.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Very cool. Right on. And then you'd also, I kind of like to hear about people's gear. You had mentioned that, you'd wear your belt as like your main light source. What belt are you using?
The UltraSpire 600 lumen waist light.
Yep. Yep. It's definitely easy to use and replace the batteries.
Sorry.
That's okay. I understand. The so
UltraSpire, the waist lamp, and then I use a Black Diamond Storm. I think it's 350 lumen headlamp.
Nice, cool. Right on. Any other stuff that you like going with? Do you have a water filter or anything?
I have two. If I'm just doing plain water, then I like the little Solomon cap.
Yeah.
And basically, you just replace the cap. You just filter the water in your bottle and replace the cap.
Yeah.
But my favorite is the Sawyer filter because I have a big 32-ounce pouch and you can filter a lot of water at one time with that.
Nice.
And then so I only had to filter once on the Massanutten Trail because I also carry a lot of water and I don't drink a lot. I've been fussed at for not drinking enough.
Do you carry a bladder?
Yeah, I had a bladder and 2 flasks. So my bladder has just plain water, and then my soft flasks have Tailwind.
How big was the bladder?
1.5 liters.
Okay, right on. Yeah. Well, I imagine as the weather turns, it gets a little bit warmer, you'll be drinking a little bit more. It's tough when it's cooler temps.
Yeah.
So you've made it past the point last time where you fell, right? Did you wave? Say hi to the.
I did. It's funny. Like I recognized the area. I don't know how because it was dark when I fell, but it was still light whenever I passed it this time. And I actually saw like a little 4-pack of mini Band-Aids that I had dropped. And there was a piece of my Mylar blanket, and there was a little piece of plastic. So I picked all that up, and then I said a little prayer of gratitude. Just thank you for that. I was just thankful that I made it that far, and I still felt good, and I didn't fall, and it was blah blah blah. So then and then I was just really thankful. But then I think it's called like jawbone or something that section.
Okay.
And man, that was rocky. Now where I fell wasn't that bad, but like right after was super rocky. And, but I mean, that was manageable, but I didn't start really having any trouble until it started getting dark. And then once it got dark, it started getting cold. And then so every time I'd be on the side of the ridge where the river was, I guess the cold from the water was, I don't know, maybe it was creating some kind of wind. And I mean, the wind was just whipping. And I had 2 pairs of gloves, but my hands started getting really cold. The tips of my thumbs are still a little numb from then.
Oh.
Um, but I just remember like I had on my Janji that I got at Solly.
Yeah.
I had that on because that's my favorite second layer when it's colder. And I had on a pair of light gloves and a pair of gloves with mittens and some capris. And like I just remember the bottoms of my legs that were exposed were freezing, and my hands were freezing. And then even my face was getting cold, so I pulled my hood up over my head, and that helped. But it was between all the debris and the cold. I remember every time I would get on that one side of the ridge, I'd be like, "Oh Lord, can we please just get on the other side?" Because there was no wind on the other side, and it would be warmer.
Yeah.
But that wind I swear, it got down to like 25, but I swear it was colder than that up on that ridge.
Yeah, with that wind. Yeah, I hear you. God. So, and you had mentioned that you did have Band-Aids with you the first time. Did you add anything more into your first aid kit the second go around?
I did. I added a couple of larger bandages, and then I had, trying to think, I added some quick clot just in case if I do cut myself again, then I won't be bleeding everywhere. And then I added some super glue. My friends joke, they were like, "So you mean to tell me if you'd have had quick clot and super glue, you would have kept going the first time?" And I'm like, maybe. So
That's
I
great.
know it sounds stupid, but I mean, because my legs felt fine the first time. I felt like everything else was fine. I was just bleeding everywhere. And then, I mean, honestly, like I could have had a concussion and passed out. So it's probably better that I didn't
Right.
keep going.
Well, I mean, yeah, God, they made you wait 4.5 hours, and I mean, but yeah, you did the right thing by staying still and kind of waiting for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, lesson learned, and it's good. You know, do you carry like anything like matches or anything just in case you have to make a fire? I know you said you upgraded to a bivy, but
Didn't. That's actually a good idea. Well, either that or a lighter. I guess matches would be better unless if it gets wet.
well, I mean, yeah, something like a fire starter. You know, something that you could just make a little fire and potentially keep you warmer. I mean, like say upgrading to the bivy that's a great upgrade. You know, it's a little bit more weight, but at the same time, if you're stuck out there like you were, that's it could be the difference between life and death. So,
Yeah.
but okay, so you've kind of been bouncing back and forth on this ridge where one side's kind of hell and the other side's a little bit better. And then how far are you now from the finish?
So where the car was, that was mile 47. So I guess after that, I'm just kind of going up, like you said, bouncing on the ridge. And then finally I come down to the gravel road. And I think that was around mile 60.
60. About 10 miles to go.
Yeah. So I'm running on this gravel road, and it's slowly climbing back up, going up to Signal Knob. And then, well, can I backtrack 1 second when I was running on the ridge and mention about the skunk?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
Because I tell you now, I will say, like, coming in contact with a skunk has been one of my worst nightmares because, like, I just do not want to get sprayed. But this cute little skunk just comes waddling up the trail, and but I freaked out. I was like, "Oh my God, what do I do?" So I just like jumped off the trail and hoped that it would either just keep on going by or something. And then I waited a second and kind of peeked around a tree, and I didn't see it anymore. He must have probably scurried off into the woods or something. But it was I know that people probably don't think skunks are cute, but it was really cute. But going back to Russ, he was like, I would have tried to use a stick to kind of shoo it away. And I'm like, yeah, you would have got sprayed. I think,
What's your favorite wildlife encounter?
um, let's see. Probably the rattlesnakes, even though like obviously you don't really interact with them, but it's really cool to see a rattlesnake on the
Yeah,
trail.
yeah.
And then I always love seeing deer. Like I get made fun of because I always take videos and pictures. You know, they're like, if you saw one deer, you've seen them all, but I mean, they're just so pretty.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, I guess if I just haven't seen anything besides deer and snakes, and then now I've seen a skunk. So now I just need to see a bear.
Oh, you haven't
From
seen a bear
afar.
yet? Oh
No,
my
I've
goodness.
not seen not while I was running ever.
Ah, that's interesting. Gotcha.
So
Fair enough.
um but anyway, so yeah, like around mile 60 I'm going up to Signal Knob, and then I think so that's for a few miles because the top of Signal Knob you have about 5 miles left. And that's so after you pass the tower at the top, you get back onto the trail, and that's when it got like really rocky. And I was like, what in the world? Like, why is it so rocky? Like, I mean, and I was trying to move so fast because like I wanted to finish under 23 hours.
Okay.
Like when I knew I wasn't going to finish in 21, I'm like, well, hopefully I can finish in 23. But it was just so hard to run because it was so rocky.
Yeah.
Um, and then, so I'm running, and my GPX file, because I have it downloaded into my watch, and it was telling me how many miles I had left. So I get to like where I had 2 miles left, and oh, and mind you, also because it's so rocky, like I like this one section there was a hard V, and I couldn't. There was no trail markers. The trail markers that were on the trail were like brown, so they blend in with the tree.
Oh, God.
And I get to this one part and I'm like, where in the world is the trail? I had to pull up my phone. I finally figured it out, but I would have never found it if I didn't have my phone or some kind of app or something. And so anyway, I texted my husband. I'm like, I'm almost done. Well, and I could see his headlights down below, in the parking area. He had turned them on because he could see my lights up above. So I'm running. I'm like, man, this is taking forever. And then I get where it says I'm a half a mile from the parking. And I'm like, there's no way. I know that I'm not a half a mile. Well, the GPX file I had it started and ended a mile further back from where I actually parked. So and then that's where that creek, well, I thought was a creek crossing, and I had to run down this creek bed. And so I get to the trailhead, and if I had just run down the road, like I'm maybe a quarter to a half a mile from my car. But of course, you can't do that. So I have to go back into the woods and go on all these switchbacks and go another mile. And I'm like freaking out thinking, oh gosh, I'm not gonna get the FKT. I'm gonna, I mean, I still would have gotten the run in. So, I mean, I would have had that, but I really wanted to get in under that 23 and a half hours. Um, so anyway, and that was fairly runnable, so it wasn't bad because you're down off the ridge and everything. But I get to the end, and for some reason I couldn't turn my watch off. I couldn't stop my watch. I don't know if it was the screen it was on or what, but I'm like standing there trying to stop my watch. And that's the picture that Russ took of me instead of like waiting and taking a picture where I was actually, stopped and alert.
Yeah.
Cause I'm just standing there fiddling with my watch, and I didn't even know he took a picture. And then I'm like about to holler at him, like, I can't stop my watch. And he's standing right next to me. I didn't even know he had walked up to me. And he's like, well, do you need anything? I'm like, no. And then we get in the car, and he said, do you want to wait for a minute? I'm like, no, just go. I'm freezing. Just turn the heat on. And he said, "Well, I got your Reese's and I got your RC Cola." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." I'm so hungry.
No
So
DQ, huh?
no, that was what was that, Monday? So that was Friday. I got DQ on Friday. Um, but
Oh, that's
no,
great.
no. In fact, like I went back to the hotel and he brought my daughter because since she's virtual, she was able to do her school, in the hotel room.
Yeah.
Um, so they had gotten pizza the day before, and I said, I need because I had to be at work too at noon, and I was running late now because it took me so long. And I was like, well, let me at least take a shower. And he's like, well, we got this pizza. So I grabbed a piece of pizza, took it in the bathroom with me, and just was eating it while the water was heating up. Because I have been known to eat in the bathtub too. But so yeah, and then like did end up stopping and getting something to eat on the way home. We stopped at Bojangles, and I got probably the worst thing I could possibly get since I'm not supposed to have gluten. But I had the sausage gravy biscuits, sausage and egg, and grits. I ate grits too, and a cup of coffee.
Oh boy. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm
You made
I'm not known for taking enough time off either.
it. Well, you got the unsupported FKT there as well, correct?
Yes, I
Yes.
finished in 23:09:27, and I think the previous one was like 23 and a half.
Right on.
Uh, and I felt pretty good about it because after I found out that the girl who got the previous record, she actually had done a lot of recon and she was really familiar with the trail. She's from up there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I guess I don't feel so bad because I went in a little blind and, I still got it. And the trail conditions were just not
Yep.
ideal.
Well, so you got the unsupported for Foothills, the Georgia Loop, and Massanutten.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. And we were talking prior to the show. You were thinking up next might be Pitchell, right? That's the next one on the list that you want to hit.
Yes. Because I'm just afraid that Scar, the trail, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be colder up there and the trail conditions can be a little rougher. But right now, like this week, I know it sounds crazy, but this week the weather is just going to be perfect at the end of the week.
Yeah.
And the parkway's actually open, which that's been an issue.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
you live up there.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, Kyle Curtin, who just did the supported FKT for the men. I don't know if you heard that story about what happened to him. Yeah. So Kyle talks about that. We had a podcast together, episode 46, where he was talking about all of the challenges of it. But you're potentially thinking of doing it Thursday evening, right? Starting Thursday evening?
Well, yeah, at midnight, because
Yeah.
I guess traditionally you're supposed to start at midnight and you're supposed to take a shot of whiskey, but I'm not doing that unless it was Fireball, maybe. Watered down whiskey.
Well, I mean the Pitchell run, the historical Pitchell run that happens in October. That one is a midnight start. That's that tradition. Kyle, he did not start at midnight. Tori did, and I mean a lot of people like to keep that tradition, but I always tell folks, make sure it makes sense for you. Like in your schedule. It's that first section of Pisgah is dangerous enough. So if starting in the daylight's safer for you, and then you can make it out the back end and get out of Mitchell without getting locked in, do what you got to do. Cause it's, I'd rather people take, precautions to be safe rather than worry about the midnight start. Because I mean, Pitchell's Pitchell. If you're starting at the top of Pisgah and you're running to Mitchell, that's Pitchell. Whether it's a midnight start or not, it's really just the route. I think Sean Pope, who had the previous men's record, I don't think he started at midnight either. But so do what's best for you. it's a great experience. I know you've done, portions of that trail. So I'm sure we'll have some really pretty pictures on your blog, because there's plenty of opportunities out there. It's gorgeous. So I wish you the best of luck with that. And then, if it happens this week, and absolutely no pressure, maybe you could come back on and we can finish this episode with how that went, if you're good with it.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I need to make sure that I have like somebody on standby local, because my husband has to work, Russ has to work.
Okay.
So I definitely need a ride back to Pisgah. I was going to put out,
an all-call.
I was going to put a post out and maybe reach out to a couple of people that said that they would help. But I know that like I don't have weekends off. So, and most normal people work during the week and they have the weekends off. So that's, I just want to make sure that I have, somebody that could come help if I needed it. And then definitely a ride from Mitchell to Mount Pisgah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I can put this out on Thursday, and if anybody hears, and you're welcome to post on the local Facebook pages, of course. And if I can put anything out for you, let me know. And if there's anything on Friday, I just have one commitment in the afternoon, but if you need a ride back, you can just let me know. So,
okay.
All right. Well, Natalie, it's a great story. Really, thank you for sharing all of that. And, I think there's a lot of takeaways that, we've went through here. So that was fantastic. And I certainly, of course, again, wish you great luck on Pitchell, and of course in SCAR and finishing this B.R.U.T.E challenge. It's pretty amazing. I'm really stoked for you. You're doing great. So thank you again.
Well, thank you.